Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the insights that matter most to you. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, I think. It's a major military infrastructure project happening right now in Kenya, Camp Simba specifically.
That's right. And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack what's going on there. We're talking about a huge new runway, significant upgrades alongside it. We'll look at who's involved, how it's all being done, and maybe most importantly, why this is such a critical development for security in the Horn of Africa.
Exactly. So the big question we're tackling is this. How does one construction project, what looks like just an airfield expansion, become this kind of linchpin? A linchpin for international security, for disaster relief, and for Kenya's own defense capabilities, all rolled into one. Let's try and unpack it. Okay, so we're talking about Camp Simba. It operates as a joint base, U.S. and Kenya working together. Location-wise, it's right next to the Kenyan Navy base at Manda Bay. That's in Lamu County. And the real centerpiece here, the main thing, is this massive new runway, 10,000 feet long. Just to give you a sense of scale, that's about 3,048 meters. It's designed for Kenya's F-5s, sure, but the really big deal is it can handle large U.S. Air Force C-17s, those strategic airlifters.
Yeah, and what's really key about that 10,000-foot length, especially for the C-17s, I mean, these are enormous cargo planes, absolutely vital for moving troops, equipment, aid all over the world. Having that capability there, it's a game changer. It fundamentally changes the type of aircraft and operations that can be based out of Camp Simba. It becomes a genuine staging ground.
Right. It's not just fitting bigger planes.
No, it means projecting power, projecting aid into crisis zones much faster from East Africa. You could potentially cut response times for major humanitarian ops, maybe even in half. That really shifts the whole operational math for regional stability.
Okay, so a project this big, obviously you wonder about the funding. Well, the U.S. State Department awarded a $10 million contract. That was back in July 2024, specifically for this runway work. But it's more than just money changing hands, isn't it? The team on the ground sounds really integrated. You've got a joint engineer team led by the 475th Civil Engineer Flight. They're working with U.S. Marine Special Operations engineers, CJTF Horn of Africa, various contractors, and critically, their Kenyan counterparts.
And that collaboration piece is really insightful. It's more than just a formal agreement on paper. It's actually building, a deeper, more immediate operational trust right there on the ground. When you have joint teams working side by side, day in, day out like this, it creates a level of interoperability, a shared understanding. It goes way beyond typical diplomatic ties. It's practical. It builds a foundation.
Yeah, makes sense. But you mentioned this runway, even though it's impressive, it's just one part of something bigger, right? A multi-year plan. This expansion at Camp Simba is apparently set to span the next decade. And the wider scope includes, something like 294,000 square feet of additional airfield construction, plus more fuel storage, more lodging for bigger rotational forces.
Exactly. And if you look at all those pieces together, it's all about boosting what we call throughput and endurance. So that increased fuel storage, for example, it's not just about keeping planes fueled up. It means less dependence on faraway supply hubs. That lets you fly more missions, higher sortie rates, and stay out longer without those really costly and potentially vulnerable transit flights back and forth.
Okay. And the lodging.
Well, more lodging isn't just about making people comfortable. It enables larger troop rotations, longer stays, more sustained presence. That means a deeper, more consistent footprint for both U.S. and partner forces in that region.
So pulling all these threads together, the huge runway, the long-term investment, the joint teams, how does this actually make Camp Simba, that linchpin we mentioned, for regional security?
Well, the primary strategic aim is pretty clear. Regional security, counterterrorism, no doubt about it. This base upgrade will seriously boost joint operations against groups like al-Shabaab, other threats across the Horn of Africa. And you have to factor in Kenya's designation as a major non-NATO ally in 2024. That's important context. This build-out really deepens that interoperability, strengthens the presence right there on the Indian Ocean littoral. It provides a stable platform in, let's face it, a pretty volatile part of the world.
Okay, so that major non-NATO ally status.
Yep.
You mentioned interoperability. What does that enhanced interoperability actually mean in practical terms, day-to-day for both countries?
Well, fundamentally, it signals a much higher level of trust and commitment. And that translates directly into capability on the ground. It means things like more seamless joint training exercises, deeper intelligence sharing, which is crucial, and maybe most critically coordinated operational responses that are just faster, more effective. It lets both the U.S. and Kenya project stability and security much more effectively across a really vital maritime and land area.
hmm And we also have to remember there's a difficult history here that kind of underlies the need for resilience in this project. Camp Simba was attacked back on January 5th, 2020 by al-Shabaab. Tragically, 3 Americans were killed, aircraft damaged. And that terrible event, well, it directly led to widespread improvements in force protection across Africa. The DoD did an independent review, documented the lessons learned, the fixes put in place.
Absolutely. That's a critical piece of this story. So this expansion isn't just about adding future capacity. It's also deeply connected to reinforcing security, learning those hard lessons from the past, making sure the base is much tougher, more resilient against any future threats. Those security upgrades are basically baked into the new infrastructure design.
Right, and it's not like this is happening secretly either. Both Kenya and the U.S. have publicly talked about this airfield expansion. There were statements, memorandums of understanding signed in 2024. Kenyan officials were quite clear, framing this upgrade as essential for counter-terror ops and for handling those bigger planes.
Huh.
Okay, so let's tie the strategic picture back to the actual operational impact. Once this whole project is done, what will it allow people to do on the ground?
Well, you'll see those bigger, heavier aircraft operating much more flexibly. Think cargo, personnel, and especially critical disaster relief. It'll better support Kenya's own F-5 fighter operations, plus advanced ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. That means keeping an eye over larger areas more persistently. And all of this really comes down to improved rapid logistics, better surge capacity along that whole East African coast. So, for example, if a major hurricane hits nearby or, a critical security situation flares up,
Oh, yeah, no.
it means a C-17 could potentially be loaded with aid or troops and airborne from Camp Simba hours, maybe even days, faster than was possible before. That's a huge difference in a crisis.
And you're saying there are already examples of this kind of cooperation happening, just maybe on a smaller scale for now.
Yeah.
Like engineers at Camp Simba helping out with humanitarian missions alongside Kenyan forces.
Exactly. That kind of day-to-day integration is already happening. This new infrastructure is really designed to scale that up dramatically, make it routine, make it bigger.
Okay, finally, let's bring it back home to Kenya's perspective specifically. Local reporting over there has pointed out that a 10,000-foot runway, well, that would actually rank among the longest in the entire country, putting it up there behind only the big international hubs like JKA in Nairobi, Moi International in Mombasa, comparable to Eldoret's airport.
Yeah, that's a really important point. When this is finished, it effectively makes Manda Bay one of Kenya's absolute top landing fields, a massive upgrade to its national aviation infrastructure. So you see, it's not just a U.S. military asset or just a counterterrorism base. It's a significant lasting improvement to Kenya's own air transport capabilities. And that could have knock-on effects potentially for things like trade, maybe even tourism down the line, national development.
So it raises that question again. What does it really mean for a country to gain a strategic asset like this, one that serves both military and humanitarian goals?
All right, so just to recap briefly, we've looked at the really immense scale of this Camp Simba expansion. We've highlighted its dual role, crucial for counterterrorism, yes, but also for humanitarian aid. And it really underscores that deepening, very practical partnership between the U.S. and Kenya.
Yeah, and maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider is this. How might these kinds of big strategic infrastructure investments keep reshaping regional dynamics? And international cooperation, too, especially as global challenges keep evolving, particularly when projects like this one blend security and humanitarian aspects so closely together.
It really does make you think about the ripple effects, doesn't it? From, local economies potentially getting a boost all the way up to global security and our shared ability to respond when disaster strikes. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.